This week on Under NDA.
No, I mean, honestly, this is worse than anything I've dealt with, to be completely honest. I've never been at a place where people wanted to I've been at places that worry about messaging. I've never been at places that police personal messages.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Under NDA. This week's topic is Control Issues Everywhere, Part 2. And today to join us for Part 2 is our good friend Jason. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am a former tech executive, now independent, I do a lot of fun stuff over at Code TV, where I'm making TV for developers.
Awesome. All right, well, we have a couple really good ones for you, Jason. And just some backstory, Jason and I have worked together. And so these stories, while they have nothing to do with Jason in particular, we felt they might be some fun ones some themes might resonate with you. So we're gonna see if, is this gonna be exciting or angry?
I like that. I'm just now realizing the theme of this show is let's dig up past trauma and see how you react on camera.
Nobody will actually see the camera part, but we have the joy of seeing that on our side. So, Woody, why don't you kick off story 1 of 2?
Yeah, let's do it. So story 1 today is titled Why I Left the Startup.
Okay, let's go.
Right? Why I left. So here we go. I joined a small startup as a product manager because I wanted to build, move fast, solve problems, actually make an impact. That's what they sold me on during the interviews. Lots of ownership, zero red tape. And then, of course, I started the job.
I feel like this is one of those things that I hope that that's actually what they said, because this has become one of my biggest red flags, is like when a company feels the need to call out that they don't have red tape, I'm like, oh, you're fucked.
Yeah. It's so true. It's the ultimate red flag of my God, everything flies through. It's all about individual ownership. You can get it done. Right. Don't worry. We just agile. So that's the word that gets me. Agile.
It always reminds me of when you if you go to buy something, you're like, oh, look at this yogurt, and the yogurt's now contains 0% rat, and you're like, oh, I wasn't worried about that before.
Oh man, but this is Woody, I don't know about you, because I know you've had a number of these conversations where that has come up in your discussions.
Oh yeah. The red tape factor. Anytime anybody signals something in an interview that you wouldn't think that they would normally call out, dig a little deeper. Yeah. Red tape or otherwise, because it at some point it starts to feel like a talking point that probably shouldn't be in there. Yeah.
So what happened? So, okay, they started the job, product manager.
So they started the job, and on day 1, I was handed a Notion page full of templates, PRDs, sprint kickoffs, planning docs, stakeholder updates. Everything had a format, a workflow, a process, very structured. And they said, we just want to keep things aligned.
Okay.
I'm actually on board with this. I like process.
Yeah, process.
So it's not feeling bad yet. So something's, I'm assuming, going to happen.
Okay, well, here's the pivotal line. It wasn't just structure. It was control. Every doc had to be filled out exactly right and then reviewed. Every decision needed a write-up, even the tiny ones. I once spent an hour rewriting a Jira ticket title because it didn't clearly signal strategic intent. It was a bug fix.
So, Jason, being in the world of the developer world, how does this land with you?
So having been on both sides of this, right, where I've been the individual contributor and I've been in leadership, I have very mixed feelings about this, because on the one hand, I agree that it should be important that whenever you want to make a decision that you clearly signal, why are we doing this? And why is this more important than other choices we could be making? Because in any startup, there are going to be 100 million things you could be doing, all of which would be good. And if you just chase every good idea, nobody ever gets anything done, because the roadmap is whipping every 24 hours. That being said, I think that there is also a form of, I'm afraid that we're going to make the wrong choice, so I'm going to bury everybody under process to make sure that we never make any choices, because that way I'm safe from making the wrong one. And finding how to strike that balance is it's precarious, right? And it kind of sounds like maybe we're tipped in the wrong direction so far in this story.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic point of how do you strike that balance where you want to move fast, do the right things, but there's so many ideas. Like how do you as a leader figure out how to strike that?
I mean, the thing that I always say when I'm doing consulting these days, when I talk to other folks in startups, and what I tried to do when I was in a position of my own, was to recognize that there are always going to be more ideas, and that there are probably ideas that you could justify as being better than the one you're currently working on, but that follow through on any idea, even a mediocre one, is going to have more value than starting a million correct ideas that don't get finished or followed through on. So what I would attempt to do is make a plan and be willing to commit to that plan through the end, unless there was some kind of absolute showstopper. And I think that the way I've seen companies actually get things done and really make a big impact is when they're willing to admit that, like, yes, we know that there are other ideas and that there are better ideas and there are a million things that we aren't doing that we should be, but we're never going to make any progress if we just keep starting and stopping a bunch of different stuff. And so we agreed at the point that we made this plan that this was the right choice for us. We need to see it through. And then we can reassess and decide whether or not it was a mistake and try to figure out how we don't make bad decisions in the future. But probably we're going to get good results because we actually followed through on this thing.
Yeah, that is not to tangent too much, but I think, Jason, we both know those situations, and Woody, where things get started, they seem like they're going down the right path, and then everything takes a left turn, and suddenly it's gone. So consistency. All right, Woody, back to the story.
Yeah. So talking about consistency, we had check-ins constantly, weekly one-on-ones, full team stand-ups, async status updates, then follow-ups to the async status updates. And still I'd get DMs asking for a quick pulse on projects that hadn't moved since the last check-in.
So that's a lot. So they're checking in, async, regular, Slack, I'm sure, and then still checking in.
A
lot of ways
of oversight.
Okay, this is probably my most nuclear take, but I think that one of the major problems in most tech companies is that the leadership team gets hired because they're people who believe themselves to be like idea people. They can think, they can absorb a lot of ambiguous information, and they can come up with an idea that should directionally move the company in the right way. Then, but that type of thinking is only valuable during the planning phase. As soon as you get out of the planning phase, that type of thinking is actively harmful. And most leaders lack the maturity and self-control to recognize that they're out of the planning phase and to sit the fuck down and let their team work.
Step back. Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear, by the way? I'm just kind of letting it rip.
We might bleep. We're not bleeping. We haven't really decided, really. I mean, we're not really going after an audience of 8-year-olds. So I think,
let's just say Dana did not ask that question last week. She just went full bore.
Full send, yeah.
Full send. Our guest on our last episode, Dana, let's just say the word shit came up quite a lot. So
yeah, well, you said you mentioned you had Dana on the show, and I was like, oh, then I can say whatever I want because I know she didn't hold backs.
Yeah.
And she did not. She was amazing as you are. But yeah, I think, man, in the world of tech and business, we swear a lot. So why filter it out? All right, Woody.
Yeah. Roadmaps couldn't be shared without a dry run. Stakeholder comms had to go through feedback. I couldn't even post in Slack without wondering if I'd get a comment like, let's revise this to stay on message. And the worst part...
So, Jason, you're laughing.
This
is hitting you in a special way, I can tell.
Honestly, this is worse than anything I've dealt with, to be completely honest. I've never been at a place where people wanted to I've been at places that worry about messaging. I've never been at places that police personal messages.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot.
But again, this is a place with zero red tape.
Zero red tape.
Zero red
They're trying to contribute. To your point, they contributed their idea up front, hopefully, and now they're trying to stay engaged in the process, apparently. And the worst part. Oh, this is the worst part. I wasn't junior. I'd done this before. I was brought in because I knew how to run product. But every move got filtered through someone else's framework. It didn't matter if it worked, only if it matched the format of the framework. I joined to build.
I do have a question for Jason, sorry, on this. Because
Yes.
This one, this is the part of the story that really gets me, which is the question I've asked, or I've been in situations where people have asked their bosses, like, why did you hire me? If you thought you hired me because you thought I knew how to do this, why do you not trust me to do it?
This is like I think I've struggled with this in both directions because, I'm in leadership meetings talking about, the things that I do, developer relations, developer marketing. And you can look at my track record and we can just point to all the successes and that, generally speaking, I'm going to get on average better results than anybody else will on the team. And somehow we're debating this where somebody who's never done marketing, never done, they're not even in the same department, right? Like we'd be in leadership meetings where for some reason our like chief security officer is weighing in on marketing strategy. I'm like, why the fuck are you here? I'm not saying I don't value your input, but on this particular thing, that'd be like asking me what my thoughts are on our like security policies. I don't know a single thing about it, and I'm not going to weigh in, right? But then at the same time, it's similarly hard when you are in a leadership position, when you know what the vision is, you know what you've laid on the line in terms of what your team has to deliver and all that, to then hand it off to somebody on your team who wasn't in those meetings, doesn't have all those context, and to say to them, you're going to deliver this thing, right? If we aren't super organized as leaders to distill what was said into clear understanding, clear metrics, clear documents, clear outcomes, then we have to get in and micromanage, which makes our teams feel like they're not trusted, makes them feel like they're not being given any room to actually maneuver. So again, it's that maturity as a leader, I think, to be able to say, like, I've contributed my part, which is to say, I think this is the best thing for the company. And now I need to explain to my team, like translate that. And this is the work that no leader ever does, which is to get out of the idea meeting and actually take some time to write something down. They just hop into the next meeting, yell something at somebody, which of course misses all the context. And then they have to like keep having check-ins to say like, hey, I also didn't tell you about this. Oh, I also didn't tell you about this. And of course everybody feels micromanaged and undercut because there's no, and I'm waiting for the twist in this story where everybody who's above this person is not following the process at all.
Unfortunately, that does not happen, but that actually would have been,
typical. I would say that would be typical and expected. Yeah. Let's close it out. I joined to build. Instead, I spent my days filling out templates, waiting on approvals, and slowly watching my motivation tank. So I left. Going back to the title of the story. Why I left? This is why.
I mean, really, so Jason, if you're looking at your horizon of how long you would withstand this, what would your time horizon be?
I don't know, maybe 5-6 hours. Now, I like in all reality, like zero chance I'd make it beyond 90 days. I would probably not make it beyond 30. Like I have a very specific aversion to not being trusted. I mean, Dorian, you know this. You've seen me go off on it. If it feels like people are just assuming I'm a pair of hands, immediately I start looking for the door.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so just going back to a comment you made about sort of people knowing how to do your job that are not in your space. For anyone who has been in marketing, for anyone who's been the people art, people who are doing design, there's always that joke. Everyone's an art director, right? It's like I wear a black shirt and jeans every day. I shouldn't be telling you what color button should be on the webpage. If you're an expert, I should not be that person, but it is interesting that the creep is real. So the next story, Jason, this one is the one where I'm just like, I'm so excited to see how you react to this one.
I'm already unhappy.
You're already
I'm already mad.
The last story left a bad taste in his
I
mouth.
see the look in your eye, and I already
Double
am
down.
going to hate this.
This is just perfect for you. Okay, anyway, sorry. I will not tee it up anymore. Woody.
Yeah, don't tease it too hard. So the priorities were the problem is the title of our second story. The priorities were the problem. I'm an engineering manager at a small startup. I joined to help build structure and scale the team. That was the expectation communicated during hiring. Initially, we aligned on a roadmap. It was documented, reviewed, and agreed to by leadership. And then we began working.
Oh my God.
A lot of these.
Here it comes.
All right.
2 days later, priorities changed.
Wait, is this so? Let's pause, Jason. Have you ever been in a position where the roadmap changed within 2 days?
It's a perpetual state of being in every tech job I've ever worked. I've never seen a roadmap stay intact for more than a week.
Really?
Never.
What is what do you see as the root cause of that?
I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how leaders believe their job is to lead, and they think the way that they lead is by having lots of meetings, thinking a lot, and then making adjustments based on what they're hearing. And at no point do they build into the leadership cycle room to build and deliver and measure, because they don't feel like they have any value if they're not actively leading. And they believe the only way to lead is to be in it and to be making tweaks and making adjustments. But the problem is that what seems like a very minor adjustment when you are the leader is, if a company has any amount of process, a huge amount of paperwork and adjustment and meetings and corrections and thrown away work for the people who actually have to implement. And so every company that I've been a part of, no matter what scale, has had this issue where, the leadership team continues to meet every week, and every week they have some new idea. And then that new idea is real important because they just heard about it. And so they need to, throw it onto the roadmap. And that means that something gets bumped or something gets adjusted or something gets changed. And now the team is every week just braced for what's going to get thrown away after the leadership meeting. And I think that, again, this is just coming back to, like, as leaders, I think our biggest job is to allow our teams to build. And I think we all miss that, because when we're doing our job well, it doesn't seem like we're doing very much at all. We're mostly just in leadership meetings saying, don't touch my team shit, let them cook.
Yeah. I've always sort of felt that if you can give your team, if you can block them from the chaos that might happen above them, you give them the environment to accelerate and do their best work. But when that seeps in, which honestly, I think we've all been in places where people who are levels above people are jumping into to Slack DMs and writing people, really junior people, with questions or comments, and it suddenly throws everything out of whack. And I think as leaders, it's just so important that we help set the tone, and we help set sort of the rules with our bosses, because that's, as leadership, that's important for us to be leading.
I didn't get into a lot of fights in my position. I argued a lot, but it was usually over specifics. But like when I went after somebody, it was almost always because it was out of band, like small thing in DMs. And I feel I probably yelled at you about this before, Dorian. I was real hard about it. Like, I did not want somebody who had authority to go out of band, because when the C-level goes into an IC's DMs, they panic. Like, hard panic, because why is a C-level executive talking to me? I must have done something really wrong, right? And so when they see that DM light up, their heart pounds, they're really scared, and then they go in there and they get told to do something that's not been prioritized. And now they're even more panicked, because they're like, oh God, I must be like really on the hook. So they'll work through the night, they'll skip their weekend, they'll blow off their family, and then they come back in the morning to find out that it was like a C-level whim because they had a conversation over dinner. And they were like, oh, I'll just fire off a quick note about that, with zero consideration of like the power dynamics and stuff. So this would cause me to fly off the handle, because it's one of those things where, like, we don't think about it because, well, we're the leadership team, whatever. Things are chaotic all the time. When you throw chaos into an IC's DMs, they assume that they're going to have to do it right now or get fired. And so I would light up anybody who did that to my team, because, I want them to stay at the company. I want them to feel confident that they're doing good work. I don't want their stress levels to spike. And so that would set me off.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Woody, back to the story.
Yeah. So let's see. Priorities change. This had become a pattern. We created plans, get buy-in, start execution. Then a meeting happens, or someone has a new idea, or an external conversation occurs, and we shift focus. Exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No discussion about trade-offs, no retrospective, just a new direction and an expectation